Picture this. It's June of 1997 in Detroit. The once mighty hockey town that spent decades thirsting for another Stanley Cup is finally celebrating. Fans clad in red and white fill the streets, cheering until their voices crack, embracing strangers like lifelong friends. On the ice at Joe Louis Arena, the Detroit Red Wings gather to hoist that fabled silver trophy overhead for the first time in 42 years, a drought that felt like an eternity for one of the NHL's original 6 franchises. In the midst of this triumphant scene stands Vladimir Konstantinov, an unyielding defenseman nicknamed the Vladinator, grinning from ear to ear as he holds the cup aloft. For Detroit, for the team, and especially for Konstantinov, the moment is pure elation, the pinnacle of an underdog story powered by grit and steely determination. But no one could have predicted that, just days after this historic win, tragedy would upend everything. Suddenly, the Red Wings' shining triumph became a somber reflection on just how quickly fate can twist, turning one man's crowning moment into a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. To truly understand the heartbreak, you first need to know just how integral Vladimir Konstantinov was to the Red Wings' identity. Born in Murmansk, deep in Soviet territory, Konstantinov learned to play hockey with a hardness that came from an upbringing in a stark, often unforgiving environment. He was never the biggest in stature, but he was fearless. When the Iron Curtain began to lift and the NHL opened its doors to skilled Soviet players, Konstantinov found his way to Detroit, joining a group that would come to be known as the Russian Five, a legendary unit that merged Soviet puck control and fluid passing with the North American brand of fierce, physical hockey. That mix of styles transformed the Red Wings into a juggernaut overnight. And at the heart of that transformation was the seemingly indestructible Konstantinov. He had a grin that could disarm you off the ice, but on it, he was punishing and relentless, delivering bone-rattling hits while also displaying the finesse of a well-trained Soviet blue liner. Fans loved him for his heart, for never taking a shift off, and for that intangible aura he brought, a sense of unbreakable resolve. Opponents, meanwhile, dreaded the number 16 bearing down on them. Konstantinov elevated the Wings from perpetual postseason disappointments after so many near misses in the early 1990s, into a team on the brink of a breakthrough. Each season, he and his compatriots chipped away at the old guard of the league, culminating in a fierce rivalry with the Colorado Avalanche that turned heads across the hockey world. 1 year before their Cup triumph, the Wings had been eliminated by the Avalanche in a series marred by brutal physical play, cheap shots, and an unending barrage of scrums. Detroit needed an edge to come back the following year, and Konstantinov provided it. Fast forward to the 1996-97 season. The Red Wings soared through the playoffs, fueled by the heartbreak of prior failures. Steve Yzerman was the stoic captain leading by example. Sergei Fedorov dazzled with his speed and creativity, while Konstantinov and Nicklas Lidstrom anchored the defense. Every matchup carried a sense of mission. When the Wings dispatched the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, then the Avalanche, and ultimately faced the Philadelphia Flyers in the Stanley Cup final, you could feel the pent-up energy of an entire city ready to burst. Detroit swept the Flyers in 4 straight games, and the entire sports world watched the Red Wings gather around their long-awaited trophy. The on-ice celebration turned into a citywide party, with fans chanting Konstantinov's name alongside the other heroes who'd ended the drought. It was like a dream come true. But a mere 6 days after that euphoric victory, the unthinkable happened. During a limousine ride back from a team golf outing, a crash left Vladimir Konstantinov severely injured, along with team masseur Sergei Minatsakhanov. Another Russian Five member, Slava Fedosov, also in the limo, was bruised but walked away relatively unharmed. In an instant, the joy of winning a Stanley Cup was replaced by collective horror. The violent impact left Konstantinov with critical head injuries and forced him into a lengthy fight for his very life, a battle far removed from the roars of the arena. It was as though the city held its breath when the news broke. Local TV stations ran constant updates, fans huddled in front of hospitals holding signs of support, and the Red Wings organization did everything in its power to wrap their beloved Vladinator in love and protection. All that unstoppable grit he'd shown on the ice, he'd now need it to survive. Overnight, the entire Red Wings family morphed from champions celebrating a victory to mourners pulling for one of their own to endure. To grasp the magnitude of this tragedy, think of how quickly an athlete's life can be altered in a sport where their body is their livelihood. Compare it to other heartbreaks in sports history, like the car crashes that forever changed the trajectories of athletes such as Bobby Phills in the NBA, or a near-paralysis event for a star NFL player. But Konstantinov's story was especially poignant because it happened in the direct aftermath of the moment he'd chased his whole career, getting his name engraved on the cup, cementing his legacy as one of the best defensemen of his era. And just like that, he was fighting for something far more fundamental: his motor skills, his memory, his ability to live beyond the confines of a hospital bed. Why did it happen? The investigation revealed the limo driver was driving with a suspended license and fell asleep at the wheel. There was outrage among Red Wings fans as local reporters questioned how such negligence could be allowed. The crash ignited debates on road safety regulations and the responsibilities of transport companies ferrying professional athletes who are, by definition, high-profile clients. Yet beyond legal blame, the emotional toll was incalculable. Coach Scotty Bowman, who had just guided his team to the top of the hockey world, found himself consoling players who visited Konstantinov daily, many unable to recognize the once unbreakable defenseman in this new state. The tragedy shook the NHL, forcing officials, team owners, and players to re-evaluate how they celebrated championships. For a league that often glamorized raucous victory parties, the Konstantinov accident was a sobering reminder that reality can intrude at any moment. What did it mean for the Red Wings moving forward? In the short term, heartbreak hardened into resolve. Just 1 year later, in 1998, the team again reached the Stanley Cup final. Fans and players alike spoke of winning a second cup for Vladdy. The entire team wore a patch on their jerseys with Konstantinov's number 16, M. Netsakanov's initials. Whenever the national TV cameras panned the Detroit bench, viewers would see a vacant spot reserved for Vlad, his jersey draped over the seat. It became a symbol of resilience that transcended ordinary sports narratives. When the Wings won the Cup for the second consecutive year, the first stop for the trophy wasn't an after-party or a lavish event. It was the hospital room, where Konstantinov was undergoing rehabilitation. In a moment that still brings tears to the eyes of many Detroit fans, Konstantinov, in a wheelchair, shared in hoisting the Stanley Cup again. That image, his teammates behind him, the cup in his lap, turned heartbreak into a symbol of love, unity, and unbreakable spirit. Yet, it was also bittersweet. As time wore on, the Red Wings maintained their status as an NHL powerhouse, winning more championships in the 2000s. But something was forever missing: that uncompromising defensive presence of the Vladinator. The league had also just lost one of its best stories, this bruising Soviet who had defied the odds, adapted so well to North America, and become a fan favorite. We're left with the question of how good Konstantinov might have become had the accident never occurred. Could he have been a Norris Trophy winner, a Hall of Famer? He had the potential, many analysts say. But fate had other plans, transforming his story into a cautionary tale about how the highest moments in sports can be cruelly punctuated by tragedy. Looking at it from a broader perspective, the Konstantinov accident underscores the fragility of success in professional sports. Fans, especially in North America, are often caught up in celebrating superhuman feats on the ice, diamond, court, or field, forgetting that these athletes are people first. They bleed, they break, they grieve, just like everyone else. The outpouring of support for Konstantinov after the crash served as a reminder that rivalries fade away when faced with true human struggle. Even Colorado Avalanche fans, bitter rivals of Detroit at the time, expressed sympathy. The NHL community rallied around a man who, just a season earlier, had been delivering punishing hits to their favorite players. Suddenly, tribal loyalties gave way to collective empathy. Over the years, as Konstantinov's condition stabilized, he gradually improved to the point of attending occasional Red Wings home games. The team, fans, and the city never forgot him. You'd still see banners with "Believe" and "Vladinator Forever" in the stands. Each time he appeared on the Jumbotron, the crowd's ovation was thunderous. It was more than just nostalgia. It was a testament to how deeply Konstantinov's spirit had fused with the heart of Hockeytown. People recognized that he was a living embodiment of courage, someone who had been robbed of his professional future, yet fought every day for normalcy. Of course, there have been debates over whether the Red Wings' celebrations that night after winning the Cup had been too carefree, questions about security protocols, and talk of how everything might have been different if the players had chosen a different vehicle or left just a few minutes earlier. None of these hypotheticals change the painful outcome, but they reveal how, in the wake of tragedy, everyone searches for answers. Those close to Konstantinov remind the public that he never indulged in self-pity. He maintained a fighter's outlook, forging whatever future he could from the wreckage. His recovery, though incomplete, stands as a reminder that sports can inspire resilience in unexpected ways. In the pantheon of the NHL's most poignant stories, Vladimir Konstantinov's tragedy looms large. Like other figures whose careers were cut short, think of Bobby Orr's knee injuries or Eric Lindros's concussions, he left us imagining what might have been if fate had not intervened. But there's a unique heartbreak to Konstantinov's story. The timing, the raw finality of it all, the abrupt pivot from celebrating a dream to confronting a nightmare. The ring of that cup-winning moment still echoes in Joe Louis Arena lore, but it's tempered by the quiet sadness that followed so soon after. So, how should we remember Vladimir Konstantinov today? As a champion, undoubtedly. As one of the toughest, most respected defensemen of his era, without question. As a symbol of perseverance and a reminder that life doesn't always let you linger in victory. Absolutely. And perhaps that's the lasting lesson here. Sports, at their best, shine a light on the heights we can reach, but they can also show how quickly those heights can vanish. In an instant, a Stanley Cup celebration can turn into an NHL tragedy, leaving behind a legacy that's both triumphant and heartbreaking. Do you think this stands out as the most tragic turn of events in NHL history? Or does another story resonate even more powerfully for you? Let us know in the comments, and keep sharing these stories, not just for the pain they evoke, but for the lessons of humanity, resilience, and unity they offer long after the final horn sounds. Because in the end, that's what sports are all about. The dreams we chase, the bonds we form, and the fragile line between soaring triumph and devastating heartbreak.